What's going on YouTube? It's Teej back again with another video, and today I'm giving you my updated NFL 2-round mock draft before we get to the testing portion of the NFL Draft Combine. Let's get into it. Now, before we officially get fully underway, a couple of house cleaning things. If you're new around here, be sure to hit that subscribe button. If you enjoyed today's mock draft video, be sure to hit that like button. But of course, most importantly, join for a conversation down below in the comment section. I tend to get a lot of good feedback and response on my mock draft videos. Hope that continues today. Who's your favorite team? What are some prospects you like for your favorite squad? Who do I have going too high? Who do I have falling too low? Anything you can think of, I want to talk about it with you down below. Let's jump right into it. I'm going to go with Evan Neal. You're starting to see this more and more often than not. And I mean, I've said this before, between Neal, Thibodeaux, Hutchinson, even Ikem Ekwonu or Charles Cross. Any of those five guys, I don't think the Jags have a wrong option on the table if it's one of those five. Shoot, you could talk me into Kyle Hamilton, but pass rushers and OT definitely have more position value, so we'll stick with that conversation. The job basically becomes, how do you maximize these players' values? And additionally, part of the reason I'm going to go Neal 1, I think there's a good chance you can get a pretty solid defensive lineman once we get to round 2. We'll talk about that here in a moment. Aiden Hutchinson stays in state to the Detroit Lions. Nothing changing from my last mock. I think this is just a good spot for him. This is a team that could use, they have some quality edge rushers. They could use someone who's special, and Hutchinson definitely has the ability to be that type of dude. Little something different here. I have Kyle Hamilton going to the Houston Texans. I like this for a few different reasons. Lovie Smith, probably not your long-term hire, but he's going to continue to call plays on the defensive side. Plays a lot of Tampa too. Kyle Hamilton will be a fantastic split safety option. But even long-term, depending on what they want to do, if they want to say, hey, let's continue with the trend of too high defensive looks, okay, you know Hamilton can do that. Or if you want to hire someone who maybe is your next head coach or your next defensive coordinator with a single high background, Kyle Hamilton can both be your robber or your deep guy. I mean, he's so good and so versatile across the board. You can ask him to do anything. So he's scheme versatile. He'll fit any defense. And because of that, the Texans have a long-term rebuild ahead of them. So I think Kyle Hamilton becomes a really attractive player in this spot because he can be beneficial and helpful for you now, but also no matter what you do in the coming years, Kyle Hamilton can be a part of that image. So I know he's a safety, and there's a player with higher position value still on the board, but I think Kyle Hamilton makes a ton of sense here at pick number 3. Then I have Kayvon Thibodeaux coming off the board with the Jets at number 4, so it falls just a touch, but I'm not going full, hey, Thibodeaux is going to fall to 8, 9, 10 or something like that. I still think there's a lot of upside to tap into. And I'll talk about this here again now with the Giants on the clock and 2 picks, 3 slots. But when you have multiple first-round picks, I think you are incentivized to take some risks. I was seeing this with the Jets last year, right? Take Zach Wilson at 2, and I was pounding the table, say take Caleb Farley at 23 if he's there. They ended up going a different route, and it worked out. Elijah Vera Tucker's a good player after trading up to get him. But to me, I saw it as, hey, if Wilson works out and you build an ecosystem around him where you maximize that, they're still working on that, of course. But if Wilson's good and 23 is a bust, Farley can't stay healthy, whatever the case may be, no one will remember that pick if 2 pays off. And I think there's something to that here with the Jets. Now, 4 and 10, it's a little different. But let's say you want to go Derek Stingley Jr. here or Kayvon Thibodeaux, maybe players with a little bit more risk inherently involved with their stock. Okay, well, at 10, I have someone in mind that I think is a little bit safer value, and I think there's some guaranteed production you can get out of him, especially in the red zone. Spoiler, it's an offensive player. But I think that just, pushes you in a spot to where, hey, at 4th, let's go take a risk. Maybe we'll get 2019 Derek Stingley Jr. Maybe we'll get Kayvon Thibodeaux at a point where Oregon just never pushed him to. The Ducks have kind of had this track record. Herbert never fully hit a ceiling after looking really good as a freshman. Penei Sewell opted out the most recent year when he would have played college football, but was really, really good, showed some promise, never saw him be elite. Kayvon Thibodeaux, similar sort of deal. Great true freshman season, was pretty much stable from that point onwards. A really good college football player. Never took that leap to greatness. Maybe working with Robert Saleh, who's had some good track record working with edge rushers. Maybe he can find that next gear. And then if you're the Jets, you have Quentin Williams, you have John Franklin Myers moving across the D-line, Carl Lawson coming back off the injury, Kayvon Thibodeaux. That pass rush looks really, really nice. And hey, Jets fans are going to continue to lobby saying, hey, we don't need to invest in the secondary. Well, you damn sure need some pass rush then. So Kayvon Thibodeaux, I think, makes a ton of sense at 4. And then, sticking to this point, this is not the pick where I'm going to go lower value with the Giants, but I'm going to go with Kim Ekwonu. I think you can play him at right tackle. Makes a ton of sense. I've said this 1,000 times. Andrew Thomas, he's made some great strides over at left tackle. I don't want to move him, so that's why I lean Ikem Ekwonu despite liking Charles Cross a little bit more in a pass-happy NFL. Ikem Ekwonu has made some strides as a pass protector, but still work to be done there. But, taking Icky here, Saquon Barkley better be the first person hit this man up saying congratulations, welcome to the Giants, because he will make Saquon Barkley's life potentially a lot easier if he's running off that right tackle side. Then we get to Charles Cross. He's going to be the pick here at 6. You've seen this one 1,000 times. I've talked about it a million times. We'll see if this team actually has the number 6 overall pick. I've seen rumors that Kirk Cousins for 6 could be floated out there, and Carolina might be that desperate. I had a hard time thinking the Vikings were going to get a first-round pick if they did move on from Kirk, but if they got 6, yeah, that would be a slam dunk for Minnesota, in my eyes at least. But let's just say in this spot, Carolina has a number 6 pick, and they're having to roll it back with Sam Darnold, or they signed a Marcus Mariota, or whoever the case may be. Charles Cross helps solidify that tackle spot. Now, I do know they have Brady Christensen, and I think there's something that could be worked out there. A little bit of an older player. Also, the gap from BYU to the NFL felt like you could see it a little bit with Christensen. Additionally, maybe Christensen's just your third tackle, and he's a rotation guy. Might be a little too big to kick inside to guard, so we'll have to wait and see. But I think getting a guy like Charles Cross playing opposite of Taylor Mouton, and then Christensen can kind of be that third swing tackle. You can kind of use him in creative ways as that extra blocker in goal line situations, or hey, pull a page out of the 49ers playbook. Use him as essentially a third tight end, put him in motion, and have Christian McCaffrey run behind him. I think there's still ways to use Christensen. I know you guys feel like you're missing out on some value of a mid-round pick last year if you go Cross here, but don't be afraid to get better, especially at a position that's as important as left tackle. There's a lot of other places you can go here. I'm not sure Carolina has this pick, but if they do, I like Charles Cross as a potential Brady Christensen upgrade, but we'll see. I think that you might be able to move Christensen inside. I'm not in the room, so I don't know. Then we get to the New York Giants, and this is where I'm going to lean back on that argument with the Jets saying, hey, take a risk. But in this spot, I'm going to take a different angle on it. I think if you're the Giants, especially depending on what you do in free agency, if you get a Kim Ekwonu, that's your high upside, high position value guy. Don't be afraid to take it safe on a guy we know most people see as a top 10 player in this class, regardless of position value. And by doing that, you're just creating a better ecosystem for Daniel Jones, right? You have a new right tackle, you have a new center, we can figure out the guard spots. That inherently makes both Daniel Jones and Saquon Barkley's lives exponentially easier. So I know Linderbaum, 7, don't take a center that high. You already got a potential starting tackle at 5. You have 2 first rounders. Don't be afraid to use the second one and play it safe. And we'll kind of come back to that conversation a little bit once we get to Philadelphia. Then I have Derek Stingley Jr. going at 8 to Atlanta. And if you think Thibodeau going 4 is outrageous, well, just switch 4 and 8, basically. That's the way I'm seeing it right now. If Thibodeau, he might not even make it past 5 or 7, though, if the Giants really do, especially if the Giants can go with Kim Ekwonu. And then, Kayvon Thibodeau, they probably will. But for the sake of this argument and this thought experiment, you can just switch Stingley and Thibodeau if you really feel the need to. But I like the idea of Atlanta pairing up DSJ with A.J. Terrell. Also allows Stingley Jr., one of the few teams up here in the top 10 to 12 where he wouldn't be their cornerback 1. I think that creates a better spot for him to succeed right away as that corner 2. I've used this parallel before, but think about Jeff Okudah as a rookie, being CB1, having to lock down Allen Robinson twice a year. Having to face Adam Thielen or Justin Jefferson twice this season, Devontae Adams, of course. That is just not, that's just a hard place to have success, especially if you're going to play a lot of man like the Lions have been using Okudah in, at least in the Matt Patricia defense. And, we'll see what happens once we have a full season of tape with him under the, Aaron Glenn-led defense. But Derek Stingley Jr., A.J. Terrell, 2 top-flight potential corners. If Stingley specifically gets that 2019 form, him and Terrell could be a scary, nasty duo. You have Richie Grant at safety, who they took in the second round last year. All of a sudden, that secondary looks a lot better, and maybe that helps generate some pass rush where this team's really struggled to get some over the past few years. Then we get to the Denver Broncos. I don't know. I'm starting to think Aaron Rodgers doesn't leave Green Bay. I feel like I change my mind on this every day. But let's just say for this video that the Broncos actually have the 9th overall pick. They don't get Rodgers, and they go Matt Corral. I think Corral might still be my QB1. You didn't get bogged down by the Senior Bowl, so you don't have that negative against him like a lot of the other guys who were there in Mobile. But also, one of the big knocks against Matt Corral is, he played in a very college-like system had Lane Kiffin calling plays and scheming people open. And I don't think that's a discredit necessarily, or I don't think it's a false statement, but I think all these quarterbacks are going to have to get better as a processor and reading defenses, even Kenny Pickett, because there's naturally a leap from down year ACC play to the NFL. So if all these quarterbacks are going to have to get better above the shoulders, why not take the guy that might have the highest floor? I don't know. Matt Corral to me feels like, if you just take the median of all, 1,000 possibilities, he is in that 14 to 18 range in the NFL because he has good mobility, he has a strong arm, and if he avoids taking hits and can stay healthy, he'll give you good football. And I think he can step in right away and honestly be a pretty solid option for the Denver Broncos, especially considering Nathaniel Hackett. I mean, I think about the year he was the OC with the Jags after they went to the AFC Championship game, and Blake Bortles, seemingly off the screens alone, that's what sticks out the most in my memory, but carved up the Patriots defense, which is still playing at a high level, for like 400 yards and like 4 tutties maybe. I was like, why is Blake Bortles doing this to the Patriots? And I think a lot of credit in that situation has to go to Nathaniel Hackett. Also, 2 years as him as an OC in Green Bay, 2 MVP awards for Aaron Rodgers. Not saying Matt Corral is going to become the second coming of Aaron Rodgers, but if Denver strikes out and doesn't get A-Rod, doesn't get a Russell Wilson, or one of these big name, veteran quarterbacks that could definitely take them to Super Bowl contention, Matt Corral feels like one of the best bets, and I think he and Nathaniel Hackett could really be a nice duo, and I think they could complement each other really well. So I like Matt Corral there at 9 for Denver, but let me know what you think. What quarterback would be the best in this class for Denver if they do go that route? Then we get back to the Jets. I spoiled it a little bit earlier. I'm going to go wide receiver, and I think with Drake London, minimum, he's the best red zone threat on this team. So, if all else fails, if he plays a full 17 his rookie year, he's probably coming away with 8 touchdowns. Just because you get inside the 20, they're going to probably start chucking him the football relentlessly. So this rounds out that wide receiver room with at least different body types, right? Like Elijah Morris, this guy who can play inside. I think he can play outside too. Downfield, lots of speed, can make catches all over the field. I like Elijah Moore a ton. I thought he should have been a first rounder, or, top of the second, not far off, but I really like that value the Jets had with him last year. Also have Corey Davis, who can be your possession type. He also has some downfield ability to him, but you're talking about, Elijah Moore, a lot of people look at him and say, yeah, that's a slot build. And then you look at Corey Davis, maybe a little bit more of that Y possession-ish type, not fully X, but kind of a combo split between the X and the Z. And then you have Drake London, who could be your X, right? Because he's strong, long arms, big hands, make it a little easier for Zach Wilson and give him a legitimate red zone target that he desperately needs. So I really like London there. And again, he feels like a safe value play because you're going to get yards out of him. You're going to get touchdowns out of him, especially in the red zone. You get something out of Zach Wilson, so you can have something to hang your hat on, and that just incentivizes you to take a chance at 4. Derek Stingley Jr., Kayvon Thibodeau, the routes I would go. Then for the Washington football team, I think you're going to start seeing this a ton, partially because Liberty's as a university not that far away from Washington, and this is a play for the future. I don't know if Washington wants to go young here, but let me make the argument for why they should. You're going to have to pay Montez Sweat in a couple years. You're going to have to pay Chase Young. You're going to have to pay a lot of money to keep Terry McLaurin around. They'll probably want to pay Antonio Gibson. That is a lot to keep up with. Additionally, Malik Willis, after transfer from Auburn, I don't think Hugh Freeze really did a great job coaching him up, and that's not to slander Liberty University, but that coaching staff is probably not on the same level of what is going to be expected of, that Willis can work with at the NFL level. So I think you're going to see some natural progression once Willis has a better coaching staff around him, someone that can tap into him a little bit more in the talents he brings. Also, this is a spot where Washington might not have a whole lot of opportunities given how good that roster is at a player who could be legitimately the best quarterback in a class. And especially at 11, I think that's a really solid value. You can go get the upside guy without trading up. I think there's something to like there about Willis going to 11. And then we get to the Minnesota Vikings. This could be another sneaky Malik Willis spot if he falls here. You have him sit behind Kirk Cousins for a year, and then Willis takes over after Cousins' contract expires. We'll see if there is as a trade. Is Cousins on the move? Because then maybe I don't like that move as much. But I'm going to go Sauce Gardner here. I think he'll fit what they're trying to do on the defensive side. And, especially if there's going to be some holdovers and some similarities to what, Brandon Staley and then Raheem Morris did in Los Angeles with the Rams. I think Gardner can fit into that. Primarily cover 1, looks with Cincinnati, a lot of cover 1 and cover 3 and man-to-man. I think, Sauce Gardner would be fine in 2 high man-to-man situations. I think he could play cover 4. He could play cover 2 in a flat. Minnesota traditionally is a team with Mike Zimmer, mixed up their coverages, and I think that could be something in a trait that does carry over to this new regime. We have yet to see that, but corner's a huge need for this team regardless. So depending on what they want to do schematically, I think Sauce Gardner, maybe even someone like Kyler Gordon, we'll see what he does at the Combine, or his Washington teammate Trent McDuffie could also be in play here at 12. Then another pick you'll see a ton, and I'm going to stick with it, Garrett Wilson for the Cleveland Browns. They need someone who can get open and separate. Honestly, this is a position I think the Browns are going to have to hammer home. You can't pay Jarvis Landry $15 million a year, so if you cut him, no guarantee you get him back. Or maybe you restructure that deal and get a lower cap hit this year. I don't know. That's going to be a tough situation to try to navigate through if you're Cleveland. But Wilson, guy who can get open easy, try to make the life of Baker Mayfield easier. You have to come up on that question, do we pay Baker Mayfield? The question gets a little easier to solve once you know supporting cast isn't the problem. Getting a wide receiver in the room is step one. Then we get to the Baltimore Ravens. I like David Ojabo here. Obviously, the Ravens just hired, the Michigan defensive coordinator, so there's some good connection ties there between Ojabo and the Ravens, but this is also just a team with a track record of, high production and player development value, right? We saw it last year with Odafe Owe. I think they can do the same wonders with David Ojabo. I know he's not great in the run game, but again, I think that's where the situation he would find himself in gets a little bit more out of him and sees him tap into it. And plus, he's still learning the game of football. Name a better franchise for him to go and learn the game from that position. Then we get to the Philadelphia Eagles here. I'm going to go with a couple of high position value guys. You can mix them up. But Treylon Burks, and I like Trent McDuffie a ton for this defense. I'll start with Burks. Obviously, same thing I talked about with Drake London, different body type, getting a different type of wide receiver in there. I see a lot of Jameson Williams here. I think if Jalen Reagor's your field stretching slot, you kind of already have that covered. He has an abundance of speed, maybe not a whole lot of lateral movement or change of direction, but he definitely has a straight line speed. And then you get Treylon Burks in there, 6'5". He can play inside out, gives you that nice versatility. I am worried a little bit more about his separation compared to London, so that's why he's a little bit lower in my eyes, but different body type. And for someone like Jalen Hurts, who no one thinks of him as, Tom Brady throwing the football, get him a guy with that type of catch radius in those hands makes his life a little easier. And then Trent McDuffie, a lot of too high there at Washington. And, Jonathan Gannon, pretty sure he's coming back as DC. A lot of soft zone, a lot of too high. Trent McDuffie, I think, is a plug-and-play, nice addition to that secondary, playing opposite of Darius Slay, and has the makings of a guy who could potentially be your cornerback one. He's short, but not small. Don't get me wrong. This dude fills out for someone who's 5'11". That dude's kind of yoked for that size. It's kind of remarkable. And he just plays so smooth in zone coverage. And honestly, we'll see at the Combine what his arms are at. Hopefully there's no Roger McCreary situation where he's got, T-Rex arms. But I'm not really worried about him playing at the line of scrimmage either, despite him being 5'11". I think he can go get dudes at the line. But it also depends on what the defense is calling for, obviously. Then we get to the Chargers. Speaking of Jameson Williams, I continue to love this fit. If they bring back Mike Williams, I love it even more, because then you have three legit wide receivers who win in vastly different realms, and they all have some versatility. Maybe not Mike Williams in the slot, but Keenan Allen can play inside and out. Jameson Williams can do the same thing, but Williams just gives you so much downfield speed and burst. It incentivizes you to use the arm that Justin Herbert has, and hopefully gets a little bit more out of Joe Lombardi as an OC to try to call more aggressive games. So I love this. Try to maximize the window. The Chargers and the Bengals are in the sweet spot where not only do they have a player playing a rookie contract, the Eagles have that situation, but they're not nearly as good at teams as the Chargers or the Bengals, because not only is that quarterback on a rookie contract, those quarterbacks are top 6 to 8 guys in the league right now. So the Chargers have got to find ways to maximize that type of a cheat code advantage they have right now. Then for the New Orleans Saints, I've been going Kenny Pickett here this time around. I'm going to go Desmond Ridder, but to me, it's interchangeable. They're probably the more two pro-ready guys, and two of the guys who might have been coming off the best seasons in college football of people in this draft class, at least. You look at Ridder, obviously getting to the college football playoff, and you look at Kenny Pickett, Heisman finalist. So I don't think there's a whole lot you can go wrong with there. Ridder's starting. I don't want to say he's winning me over, but he's winning a lot of other people over. So call this me buying into the hype. Maybe I'd go Pickett here instead. I'm not crazy about Pickett. I'm not really fond of either one of them, but Ridder at least gives you a little bit more mobility, and stronger arm, and you don't have the hand size concerns. And also, I'd be really interested to see what he, as an underneath passer, could do with a guy like Michael Thomas. Alec Pierce is a good player at the college level, but Michael Thomas is a different beast. And I know people want to call him slant boy and stuff, and he runs a lot of slants. But he's damn good at it. He might be the best dude at getting open on those types of routes. So why knock it? I wish I could be that good at something like that. So Ridder and Thomas, what is that relationship like? And we'll come back to the offense once we get to the second round for New Orleans. Back to pick number 19. This is where, again, I'm going to invoke the argument that it's okay to go low position value in the first round. Also, this linebacker class is pretty stellar. I mean, look at some of the names here on the Draft Network. Just took Lloyd, Nakobe Dean, Christian Harris, Brian Asamoah, Chad Muma, Beavers, Leo Chanel, Quay Walker, Channing Tindall, those guys from Georgia. I mean, there's just studs left and right. And like any one of those guys that are on the screen pretty much right now could go first 2 days, and I wouldn't be surprised. And that's kind of where we're at. And I think that's going to create some carryover into day 3, and you'll see something where some of these guys are coming off the board early in the 4th round, and people will say that, hey, that's some of my favorite value selections I saw in the NFL draft. I promise you, that's what's going to happen. And then with Lloyd, this is a position of need for Philadelphia, and they need to get someone a little bit more athletic to play it. Next to TJ Edwards, I think Lloyd Edwards, that gives you a really nice nickel linebacker duo. When you only have 2 guys out there, they can hold it down because they're both smart football players, and Lloyd gives you a ton of athletic ability to kind of make up for what Edwards might be lacking. Pittsburgh Steelers, I have no idea what to expect this team wants to do with the quarterback position, but I got a feeling they want to go young. I think Sam Howell gives you a nice boundary or a nice middle ground here, so it's fortunate in this mock that it falls to the Steelers where he has the upside. I think he might have the 2nd highest ceiling right behind Malik Willis, but he also is one of, the more pro-ready guys. Like Willis, I don't think can play year 1. Pickett, Ritter, probably your more pro-ready guys. And then there's, Howell and Corral there somewhere in the middle. And, who knows what to do with Carson Strong right away. It kind of depends on the medical. Tangent aside, I think this is a good spot for Pittsburgh to go quarterback. They might trade up. I mean, I really just have no idea what this team wants to do in the quarterback position and how aggressive they're willing to get, especially considering they have so many other holes, right? Can you afford to trade up or trade draft picks for Deshaun Watson or Russell Wilson? At least those guys are elite, so it makes it a little bit more worthwhile. If you trade up to go from 20 to 10, swap picks with the Jets, and then some, what are you going to do about 4 of your 5 offensive line positions? What are you going to do about corner, especially with Joe Hayden gone? You need pretty much an entire cornerback room. What are you doing about linebacker? Plenty of other questions. Nose tackle. Getting rid of assets doesn't feel like a spot where Pittsburgh can afford to do that because they have so many holes across the roster. It just happens they have a ton of star power as well, which helps carry the load, right? Like TJ Watt does a ton. Cam Hayward does a ton for that defense. It'll help getting Stephon Tuitt back. All that to say, if you can just wait for a quarterback to fall to you at 20, Pittsburgh might just be in a spot where it's saying like, hey, we need to hold on assets, got to plug away at holes. Let's just wait for a quarterback to come to us at 20. We'll take whoever we think's the best. Moving on to the New England Patriots, I'm going to actually go corner here. I think wide receivers in play. I think linebackers in play. I just think they're a team that makes a ton of sense to go wide receiver in free agency, whether it's Chris Godwin, maybe it's a trade for Calvin Ridley, maybe it's Allen Robinson. And if you do that, I think, especially it sounds like J.C. Jackson hasn't heard or they haven't reached out to him. I would be floored if they let J.C. Jackson walk. Maybe they'll tag him. He said he'll play on it. That is just really concerning to me. If they don't retain J.C. Jackson, cornerback single-handedly their biggest need. Like I know Kendrick Bourne and Nelson Aguilar aren't good, but if J.C. Jackson leaves, Jalen Mills is your cornerback 1, and if that's not a red flag, I don't know what you see as a red flag. Your standard must be super duper high for that. But Andrew Booth Jr. gives you a nice fallback option. If you don't get Jackson back, but even if you do get Jackson back, J.C. Jackson, Andrew Booth Jr., yeah, that's a 1-2 tandem I can live with. And then you kind of use Jalen Mills because he's played a lot of safety too. In that nickel strong safety role, you're starting to see carved out a whole lot more for defenses across the league. I think that could be a spot where you get a lot out of Jalen Mills, at least a lot compared to average Jalen Mills. Then for the Las Vegas Raiders, you'll see a ton of this. And Chris Olave is getting hot right now. Maybe he's not even on the board at 22 because the Combine's obviously this week. He's going to run a fast 40. I'm already starting to see people put him at 13 to Cleveland. I don't think that's impossible. This could be a name that's not even on the board here at 22, but I think this gives this offense, great downfield threat that they're desperately in need of. We'll see what they do in free agency. Obviously, that's a huge caveat for each and every pick here, but I think a lot of it makes a ton of sense. And, if the Raiders are going to go all in on Derek Carr with Josh McDaniels, invest in those pass catchers because, Bryan Edwards ain't it. He's fine. He's okay. Zay Jones is a free agent. He's okay at best anyways. Darren Waller is a stud. I'm not going to take that away from him. And Hunter Renfrow is a great slot wide receiver, but slot wide receiver. Need someone who can win on the outside that's not named Darren Waller. Chris Olave could help, plug away at that position of need. Then we get to the Arizona Cardinals. This could be corner. This could be edge. This could be interior offensive line. Here I have him get some awesome value in George Karlaftis. He's a guy who feels like a lock for the top 15, but I'm also having a hard time shoehorning him in. Now, the Eagles could take him with either one of those picks. I think the Chargers could be a sneaky good fit for him at 17. I love the idea of him going to the Browns and just staying in a 4-3. I think he's better suited to at least right away playing a 4-3. He goes to the Browns at 13. That would be a really interesting fit. But here falling down to 23 with Arizona, there's a lot of good edge rushers. I mean, look, I haven't even put Travon Walker or Jermaine Johnson on some team's roster yet. So there's a lot of good players here at the edge position. Cardinals get some great value, and I think that's why I lean edge over cornerback here in this spot if I were Arizona. Then we get to the Dallas Cowboys. Thought about Jordan Davis here, but instead I'm going to go Nakobe Dean. I think it might be tough to keep Randy Gregory around if they're going to continue to pay Tank Lawrence, or, it's Gregory coming back and they move on from DeMarcus Lawrence. Either way, I think you're going to see a lot more of Micah Parsons as an edge rusher and just as a straight line blitzer against guards and maybe 3-3-5 sets. I think you could really use him as a player, just tee off in advantages and pick on guards who aren't very good in pass protection. That's really fun, at least as a outside the box way of looking at defense and how to generate some pressure. And Nakobe Dean, if you use your other off ball linebacker in replacement to Leighton Vander Esch, it allows you to use Micah Parsons in that type of role. So I can see that being a big priority. Dean, despite being smaller, also really good in the run game, shoots gaps well, which this Dallas team has had a hard time stopping the run. That's part of why I was thinking about Davis here, but I go with another Georgia defender in Nakobe Dean. Then we get to the Buffalo Bills at 25, and this is going to be, I don't want to, declare anything. This could be, me getting exposed for this take. I think you're going to start seeing this pick a lot, though. I think Kyler Gordon, he's the longer of the two Washington corners, better size, and I think he's going to tear it up at the combine. And once people start getting those athletic, numbers in, they're going to be like, oh man, is it Kyler Gordon or is it Trent McDuffie is the better Washington? His name's going to get hot. And right now, he's probably that early to mid second round type of guy, maybe late second if you're having a hard time finding where he could go. But again, a lot of too high coverages at Washington, has the long arms. It's a position of need for the Bills. I think he's going to get a lot of buzz, and I think this is a spot you're going to start to see him come off the board a ton. Back half the first round, a defense that plays similar to what Washington was doing, a lot of too high looks, and again, position need. They need somebody opposite of Tre'Davious White, so I think you're going to start seeing Kyler Gordon to the Buffalo Bills a whole lot after the combine. But if I'm wrong, then I'm wrong. I don't really care. On to the Tennessee Titans. I wasn't necessarily in love with this pick because they did take Dylan Radunz, but they are losing some interior guys, so Green could just be a plug-and-play guard. You could also use Zion Johnson for that. I think either way is fine. The reason I did go Green over a guy like Zion Johnson is because Taylor Wan's battled injuries. There's no guarantee Radunz does stick at tackle because a lot of people last year were saying, nah, he's a guard at the next level. So we'll see. Maybe it's Radunz playing guard and Green sticking out at right tackle. Maybe they'll bring back David Questenberry and they'll play both guard. I don't hate that idea either. And, on top of all this, Roger Saffold, likely cut candidate. Otherwise, you pay him $10 million to be a pretty good run or really good run blocker and not great in pass protection. I think they'll want to move on from there. And Kenyon Green definitely gets you an upgrade in the pass protection. You might be taking a step back, though, if, Green's your Saffold replacement in regards to the run game. Then we get to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. This could be another Zion Johnson spot. I'm, filming this the day that, or maybe the day after Ali Marpet decides to retire. But I'm going to stick with my IDL pick here in Devontae Wyatt. This is your replacement for Ndamukong Suh. And also, it's really a great spot for Wyatt to feel like he has a similar setting to what he did in college, right? Playing next to Vita Vea. Basically, Vita Vea represents what Jordan Davis' potential is at the NFL. So you can just put Devontae Wyatt in a situation where he has the best of Jordan Davis playing next to him, assuming Vita Vea is healthy. And I think that makes, Wyatt in that 3-tech spot so much more dangerous to shoot gaps, use his athleticism, and not only in the run game, but he is a better pass rusher right now than Jordan Davis. And, Ndamukong Suh has taken some steps back. So as a team in Tampa Bay that has struggled to generate pass rush down the stretch and, some big free agents of years to come in the secondary, maybe one of the ways you counter that is by trying to get some more pass rush. Devontae Wyatt here at 27 feels like a good value as well, right? Better player than 27th in the class, especially if you take away position value. But even with it, Wyatt's probably right around this range if you were to just big board him up on this board in this draft class. Then we get to the Green Bay Packers, and Travon Walker could totally go higher than this. We'll see what the numbers are looking like after the combine. But Travon Walker does feel very Rashawn Gary, so it's kind of a natural, hey, well, Green Bay probably likes that because they liked Rashawn Gary, obviously. If Travon Walker is, the winner of the combine, he's right there with Hutch and Thibodeau. In some people's eyes, he'll surpass Thibodeau, honestly. So that's if he wins the combine. That's an unbelievably high bar to set. It helps no Evan Neal competing. But tangent aside, if Walker puts up some gaudy numbers, he could be in that 10 to 15 range. He could leapfrog a George Karlaftis, David Ajabo for sure. But I'm kind of taking a middle ground here. In my last mock, I had him as the first pick, 33rd overall of the second round. The Jags, here he gets a little bit of a bump, and he goes to a spot where the Packers prioritize having those 3 edge rushers. Then Javon Walker is their type of project, obviously evident by the selection of Rashawn Gary and the progress he has made in that defense. And also some Zadarius Smith insurance, right? Smith missed a lot of time last year. Walker could be someone who steps in if that happens once more. Then we get to the Miami Dolphins. I love Trevor Penning in the spot. Just a mean streak. Feels like a potential Mike McDaniels type of dude, because Penning could be your mean streak right tackle like Mike McGlinchey, or he could be what this team is trying to replicate with Mike McDaniels having Trent Williams in San Francisco. I think in an ideal spot, this is the pick anyways, and you signed Teron Armstead, because then Armstead could be your solid left tackle of the future. Trevor Penning could be your right tackle of the future, and then you're just trying to figure out the guard spots, which you've already drafted a ton of guys who probably profile better as guards with Robert Hunt, Liam Eichenberg, Austin Jackson, etc., etc. So drafting Penning, signing Armstead, maybe that fixes your offensive line, or at least takes it in a huge step forward. But if they do sign Armstead, I could also see if one of the linebackers is available here. That could be really tempting. Wide receiver, definitely in the mix, especially if a Burks or a London falls here. Maybe even a Jameson Williams, and really just try to go all out with the speed element in Waddle and Williams. So definitely a lot of pieces that could move here. But even if they sign Teron Armstead, which a lot of people are saying that they're interested in and they should be, I think doubling up on tackle is not a bad idea, especially if you can get Penning or Bernard Raymond here at 29. Moving on to the Kansas City Chiefs. This is another great value pick here. Jermaine Johnson, after the Senior Bowl, and even now, people are putting him in the top 10. I'm not quite ready to do that. I think he's just NFL ready, and that's part of why he dominated at the Combine. Him and Zion Johnson both just displayed, hey, you could probably drop him on an NFL team now, and they'd be okay. They'd be solid. And there's value to that. No doubt about it, especially for a team like Kansas City. If Jermaine Johnson's a plug-and-play starter at the edge, you can move on from Frank Clark and that hideous contract. Awesome. That is a huge move then for Kansas City. More so because you're moving on from Clark, but also you have a first-round talent replacing him. But Johnson at the Senior Bowl showed a lot of ways he can win with his hands. He showcased a full arsenal of moves, plus good athleticism. And I will say, Florida State, and I've talked about this with Drake Jackson and USC, these once blue blood, power dominant programs, and you look at their tradition, it's like, wow, that's amazing, but they're just not that relevant anymore. A lot of that's due to coaching and just not having the right guy and the guys around him in that filled out coaching staff. And I almost wonder, like Jackson and USC, how much meat is left on the bone with Jermaine Johnson coming from Florida State? Because I could just see, hey, the coaching staff didn't really get the most out of him. He goes to an NFL roster, NFL team, and has a better coaching staff around him and really coaches him up. Johnson could then explode. So I'm thinking he's more of a back half the first round, maybe as early as, early 20s, maybe the Cardinals at 23. I wouldn't hate that pick. But here, the Chiefs at 30, allows you to move on Frank Clark. I love that with all my heart, honestly. That would be the perfect situation. If I were a Chiefs fan, that's what I would want. Him or Kyer Elam here at 30. Then we get to the Cincinnati Bengals. This is where I'm going to have Bernard Raymond coming off the board. Rumor is Ryan Jensen, an early favorite for the Bengals to sign this offseason. Fix up that center spot and try to patch away that interior offensive line. Do need a right tackle. Raymond could be your guy of the future. Then we get to the Detroit Lions. Kenny Pickett here. You'd probably like to see a guy with more upside be available here at 32 than Kenny Pickett, who one of the lower ceilings in my eyes in this class. But plays in Detroit plays in the dome, so the small hands become a little less prevalent in this process, at least the way I see it. And take a shot at 32. And if push comes to shove, if all else fails, he's a cheaper, younger Jared Goff. Pickett might not be good. Maybe the hands are too big of an issue. But Goff of the starting 32 quarterbacks is 30 to 32. Between 30, 32, maybe 29, 28, depending on how you see it. He's one of the bottom 5 to 6 starters in the NFL anyways. Pickett can't be that much worse. And plus he's younger. And then you could put that money elsewhere. Maybe some young free agents that you like and think, hey, long term, this could be our guy. And if Pickett's bad anyways, you're picking top 5 to 10 next year anyways. You have that money freed up. Go big in free agency and rebuild around a different rookie quarterback. All right, we're on to the second round. I'm going to try to speed this up. I know this video is starting to get rather long. This is where I'm going to have Jordan Davis come off the board. I know I'm probably going to catch some flack for, how do you not have Jordan Davis? Freak of a dude, insane build, unbelievable run stopper. But again, doesn't do a whole lot on passing downs. Probably a guy the first year or two in his career coming off the field on third down. So that's where the league, in close games, third down decides it. And if Davis isn't on the field, how do you justify using a first-round pick on that type of guy? But I will say here, the Jags, this is a money spot. One, you got your tackle, the first overall pick. Now you can go D-line, not edge like I had with my last mock and Travon Walker, but this is a division where Jordan Davis is fit to play in, right? You'd play the Colts twice a year. You know they want to run the ball in early downs with Jonathan Taylor. You know they just want to run the ball a lot with Jonathan Taylor. Same can be said about the Tennessee Titans and Derrick Henry. And, Lovie Smith is probably going to coach the Houston Texans like it's 2008 anyway, so probably run the ball a lot on early downs. So Jordan Davis makes a ton of sense, and that's why, he's probably going to go in the first round. But if he falls to 33, I was pounding the table that the Jags should take Christian Barmore the top of round 2 after he somehow slipped through the first round. I was saying they should take him at 20 over Travis Etienne, but, they went Etienne instead. If Davis is there at 33 and the Jags have the chance to take him, I will be in full support. I think that's one of the best spots he could go and be a replacement to Devon Hamilton, who ultimately has been kind of a disappointment for the Jags. Next pick for the Lions, I think this year is Elijah Moore in a lot of ways. Jahan Dotson. Now Pickett has a weapon, and I think Pickett and Dotson, Dotson wins in that 10 to 19 yard range. Pickett wins primarily underneath, intermediate and below. It doesn't have a huge arm, so I think this is a marriage that could potentially work out. My only concern with Dotson over someone like maybe a George Pickens or Christian Watson, or even John Mechie III, who's coming off an injury. Those guys give you a player who wins in different ways than Amon-Ra St. Brown. Amon-Ra St. Brown wins in the slot, and Jahan Dotson may well run in the 4.3s. We'll see. If not, low 4.4s probably. And he gives you that downfield burst. I'm not saying that he's a bum compared to John Mechie III. Mechie III, though, is a legitimate deep threat. That's his specialty. Dotson, I think 10 to 19 yard range. He can win yards after the catch wise as well. And he does have some downfield speed, and you might be able to tap into that as well. Don't know, though, if Pickett is your quarterback and your pick at 32. Okay, sorry. Little break in the video there. Ordered food. It was here. I had to go get it. My bad. I'm back. On the Jets at pick number 35, I think this is a great spot for Zion Johnson. If he falls to this spot, I think this is a really good place for him. One to go to because, you get to play with, Elijah Vera Tucker as well as hopefully Mekhi Becton and, with the potential of Morgan Moses or George Fant coming back. Finish up working on that offensive line, some good guard and potential tackle flexibility if injuries do come arise. I'm doing this pick based on the assumption that Mekhi Becton will be back. Otherwise, that might shift what you're trying to do it for. But until I have more information, that's kind of why I've taken the route I have with the Jets as well. Then we get to the Giants. I think you're going to see a lot of this, especially for people who know what Wink Martindale wants to do as a defensive coordinator. They're going to start to see a whole lot of either Christian Harris, even maybe Brian Asamoah, but I'm going to go Leo Chenal this time around, linebacker from Wisconsin. Chenal as well as Harris both have the ability to blitz really well from that inside linebacker spot, which is something Wink Martindale wants to do a ton. Blitz the inside linebackers, drop the outside guys. In his zone coverage, it's just a little different look than what you might see. And plus, you can just put 6-7 guys on the line and the offense doesn't know who's going to be coming to rush. So I think Chenal makes a ton of sense there to fit what Wink Martindale's trying to do. For the Houston Texans, Roger McCreary, I think, a pretty logical pick. A lot of Patriots guys in that front office. And I know the shorter arms are a concern. And, especially even that Tampa 2, you play that hard flat, could be a bit of an issue there for Roger McCreary. If it doesn't work on the outside, it's fine because then you just kick him inside to play the nickel and he's going to be pretty good there. So for the Texans, considering they're going to lose a lot of games next year anyways, just have a year of him playing on the outside to see if it'll work. If it doesn't, okay, then fine. Kick him inside to play the nickel and you got a damn good one at that. But despite the short arms, I think 8th in Pro Football Focus, all-time rank of forced pass breakups. It just doesn't make sense with 29.25 inch arms, but he made it work. So maybe there's something there. But like I said, let it play for a year on the outside. If it doesn't work, then you got a great nickel. Back to the New York Jets. I'm going to actually go Jaquan Brisker here. I've been going tight end, and I do want to address that here. A lot of the times, or at least the last couple of mocks, I've been going Trey McBride. I think that is a good option for the Jets to go. The reason I'm not doing it here is just because I think one of these tight ends is probably available at the top of round 3. And they're all pretty much one and the same. So, if it's not Trey McBride, then take Isaiah Likely or, one of the, you could even wait a little bit longer, maybe a Jeremy Rupert's later. I think Weidermeyer is going to fall a little bit. We'll see what his combine testing is looking like. But he could be another candidate that falls and maybe you could wait a little bit longer. But I think you can get McBride either, maybe even you get back into the second round and go that route, or you just wait till the top of round 3 to get McBride or Likely. I think at least one of the two of them will be there, maybe even both. So with all that said, I'm going to go Jaquan Brisker here. One, because, we'll see what happens with Marcus May if he's coming back. But I think that he's more than likely gone. That's just kind of me assessing the situation from afar. So Brisker is your Marcus May replacement. You play him with Ashton Davis. I think Davis specifically is your, deep coverage guy. If you were to go single high, he'd be your free. But I think you'll see a whole lot of, the cover 4 that Saleh has started to adapt into his system a lot more. If not, if it's more traditional cover 3 from Saleh, then Brisker played a ton in the box at Penn State. Ashton Davis is your deep safety. Boom. Crisis averted, if you want to say that, with Marcus May leaving. The Chicago Bears next. I'm going to continue to roll with this David Bell pick. I think I've done this in every mock. This might be the one holdover I've had the same. I'm sorry, Bears fans. If Zion Johnson falls here, he'd be an awesome pick. Maybe Kenya Green. He's starting to feel like a name that's falling. And just not that he's done anything wrong. He's just not a name that's hot right now, so people are just kind of having him matriculate down their boards. That could be a good pick there at 39. You could be looking edge, get younger at that position. Corner, I think, makes a ton of sense. If you want to pair somebody opposite of Jalen Johnson, I basically listed off half of the necessary positions you would want to take to put a football team on the field. But I like David Bell here a ton. As a guy who, possession by possession, moves the sticks, first down after first down, that type of, I almost think, not necessarily the same player, but TJ Houshmandzadeh, kind of what he was, and Darnell Mooney could be your little Chad Johnson / Ocho Cinco, for those throwback Bengals days. Again, I'm not comping these players necessarily one-to-one, but think that type of relationship. Bell with Darnell Mooney with what Houshmandzadeh and Ocho Cinco kind of had in Cincinnati. Then we get to the Denver Broncos. I'm going to go with potential upside play here for Denver. I'm going to go Boye Mafe. They could definitely go maybe the safer route, in air quotes, Kingsley Enagbare. Boye Mafe, though, I think with his athletic profile, they've gotten a good amount of progress out of like Bradley Chubb, who was really nice athlete coming out of NC State. Plus, he's just kind of a natural fit in a 4-3. But they've gotten even more out of him, and maybe part of that was playing opposite of Von Miller. I'm sure that helped make his life a little easier. But I think, this is the way you try to address that position if you don't just re-sign Von Miller. I mean, he's back out there and he makes a lot of sense fit-wise, but I think this could be a team that, taps into what Boye Mafe could be after a disappointing week 1 against Ohio State. Really bounced back and played a nice year for Minnesota, so I like that fit there a ton. 4, I'm actually going to have a run on edges here, at least 3 of these next 4 picks, including the Mafe one we just had. But with Seattle, I'm going to go Cameron Thomas. I think he just fits a little easier in that 4-3. We'll see what Ken Norton's replacement wants to do. The defensive coordinator spot, Arnold Ebiketie could also be in play here. Drake Jackson, Najee Sanders, basically into the edge guys. Logan Hall could be a nice play here too, depending on what his combine looks like. And then for the Washington football team, I'm actually going to go out of the edge rushing position and go with Lewis Sin. This is a team that primarily runs a lot of cover 1 or single high looks, cover 1, cover 3. And so because of that, I don't know if it's a great fit Sin next to a player like Cameron Curl, who primarily I think has a better role as a box safety, that robber role in a cover 3 on that single high defense. Lewis Sin could be a guy who plays that deep zone. Part of the reason I did this is because if you look at where he charted, majority of his snaps came as the deep safety. So I think that makes some sense. He's not necessarily awesome in coverage. It's not Earl Thomas or anything like that, but part of the reason they had him at deep safety is so he could come crashing down and lay some dudes out. I think he does provide that value. So maybe it's flipping Curl and Sin around, so where offenses genuinely look at the Washington defense and don't know which safety's rotating high and which one's rotating down. That could certainly be in play. You can get real creative. Have one lineup in the box to start, one is the deep, and then completely flip them. Maybe there's something there Jack Del Rio can tap into. Not entirely sure. Not a super creative DC, but Lewis Sin, position of need, all that to say. The Atlanta Falcons at pick number 43. I'm going to go back to the edge group now, and Kingsley Enagbare. Really like Enagbare a whole lot. Great size, great arm length. Feels like he just needs to learn 1, 2, be great if he learned 3 pass rushing moves. Add that in the repertoire, not just lean on the bush, the bull rush, combining words now. The bull rush to win. I think this guy could be a real stud. And again, this team has been looking for edge for half a decade to a decade now. So you get a corner in round 1, you go Kingsley Enagbare in round 2. You're addressing your big positions of need and trying to improve that defense. Next up, Cleveland Browns. I'm going to go DeMarvin Leal. I just really like this fit with this team. In a 4-3, I think Leal, probably not throwing him out on the edge, so he's probably your 4-3 D tackle, playing that 3-tech spot. And I like him in that role, but, especially if he's open to adding weight, we'll see. Maybe they do try to kick him out and he's your Jadeveon Clowney replacement, but I think part of the appeal of why I like Leal to the Browns is because he gets to work with Myles Garrett and he has that position versatility. So, in obvious passing situations, maybe you can kick him inside, but then on, early down spots, you throw him out on the edge. I think there is something to play with there for Cleveland. Maybe that's why I like the fit a whole lot. Then we get to the Baltimore Ravens. Speaking of fits I like, this would be a dream come true. I just like Kaiir Elam. I mean, if you were around for my first mock, my way too early stuff, I had Elam as a top 10 guy. And I mean, even my first big board, I'm pretty sure he was top 10, 50. I love Kaiir Elam. And I don't think he should be falling, but part of me doing this video is anticipating and trying to gather information that I'm hearing in the buzz, who's hot, who's not. But Elam to Baltimore, as much as I'm seeing a whole lot of, Sauce Gardner, and I'm seeing a lot of Derek Stingley Jr. in round 1 to Baltimore, and I'm praising that. I think Kaiir Elam in round 2 would give you a similar type of awesome fit. This guy can go get wide receivers at the line of scrimmage, has that big frame that they traditionally like. If you go Elam and you feel confident with right away, cut Marcus Peters, use that $10 million elsewhere, and, he fits what they want to do or traditionally have wanted to do. So I love that. And again, same thing I talked about when they took Ojabo at 14 in this mock. It's a player development factory. And I feel like as a fan of Kaiir Elam, this would be an awesome spot to see him go to a team that can maximize his value. And next, edge corner, that defense is looking revamped, or at least has a shot of youth into its arm. And that would take this defense potentially to a new level, considering they're going to have to get cheaper on that side of the football to continue to build around the offense and pay Lamar Jackson. So I think Kaiir Elam with David Ojabo as the first round selection makes a ton of sense for Baltimore. Then we get to the Minnesota Vikings, and I went corner first time round. Now I'm going to go edge, and we'll go Drake Jackson. I've heard that they want to switch to a 3-4. Drake Jackson kind of feels like Danielle Hunter-ish, with this guy who kind of underperformed, and I don't want to say underperformed because Hunter was solid at Florida State, but coming from those programs that I think underperformed over the last decade, and you kind of wonder how much meat's left on the bone because of those situations. Drake Jackson primarily winning with speed, dipping under, beating tackles to their outside shoulder. Just needs to be able to learn to cross back over and how to attack that inside shoulder. Add a couple moves, kind of what I talked about with Kingsley Enagbare, but instead of Enagbare winning with his arm length and his strength, I think Jackson does it with a little bit more finesse and speed play in mind. Develop, add another move or two, potentially 3, and I think this guy could be really scary, especially if they keep Danielle Hunter. Then that could be a really awesome pass rush duo, and guys that are just so quick off the line and just force you to get the ball out quick given their speed. Then we get to the Indianapolis Colts, and I think you're going to start seeing this one a ton, and especially considering part of why I'm doing this is because it makes sense why Indianapolis would take Carson Strong. I'm having a hard time finding that why for a lot of other teams, especially given who I had go in the first round. Like, Pittsburgh's not going to double up a quarterback in the first or second round. So if you're going to go quarterback in round 1, you're not going to do it in round 2. So taking those teams out of the equation, I have a hard time answering the why. Why would this team take this quarterback? But Indianapolis, Frank Reich's had success with players who were statues like Phillip Rivers, and Carson Wentz can move, but he's obviously not a Lamar Jackson, not Kyler Murray, but he's not all that fleet of foot. Patrick Mahomes probably a better athlete in most people's eyes, but maybe that's up for debate. Once all that to say, not a stellar athlete. Phillip Rivers is a statue, so maybe Frank Reich could get the most out of Carson Strong, and maybe that's why I think there could be a marriage and there could be some attraction from the Indianapolis side. But for every other team, until maybe pick 58 with Atlanta, I have a hard time finding a team that would say, yeah, let's go ahead and do that. If it gets to 58 in Atlanta, you maybe do it just to throw a second round pick, a potential successor, but I don't know if the Falcons want to go statue to statue with Ryan to Strong. So I don't know. That's even kind of a tough sell in my eyes. Moving on to the Chargers, though, this is where, and again, don't go Jordan Davis in round 1, because go get an awesome wide receiver to add to that group, and then get Travis Jones in round 2 and still feel that need with a guy who will do just as good a job, honestly, as Jordan Davis. So love this 2-round mock for the Chargers. One of my favorites, honestly, in this video, that and Ravens. And I like this Saints pairing, too. Sky Moore, this guy who can win with the ball in his hands, has good speed, can wing down the field. They have him be the second-round pick after you took Ritter in round 1. You add Michael Thomas back, hopefully healthy. That offense, with the introduction of a potential quarterback that obviously you need to have hit, and then a wide receiver, investing into that position group. You move Marquez Callaway as your maybe rotational outside guy. Maybe you can play in the slot. You keep your stars around. That team feels like it might be the best in the NFC South. And that's why I think I like this pathway, because it gives New Orleans a legitimate shot to be, 9-8, 10-7, win that division. And once you get to the playoffs, anything can happen. Bengals made it to the playoffs, made it to the Super Bowl, 10-7 regular season. So not saying that they're going to be the next Bengals if they go this route, but it gives you that opportunity. Miami Dolphins, I'm going to go Kenneth Walker Jr. here, or the third. Don't know why I said junior, but Kenneth Walker, get that running back that they are looking for. And, this is a team that just hasn't invested that high capital, so it's not that it should be rational. It's like telling yourself, I haven't spent a whole lot of money, so let me go drop, all of it in one day. And that's not necessarily what the Dolphins are doing here, but finally making that high-end investment, it feels like they're due for that, I guess is what I'm trying to say. Kenneth Walker makes some sense there. Obviously, an upgrade at that position potentially. And it's what Mike McDaniel's, kind of known for. The, first run game coordinator, then offensive coordinator for a team that has maybe the best rushing attack in football. So that's what people are kind of drawn on, and I think you'll see a lot of, running back here at 50 or, somewhere in this range for Miami. I could even see them after potentially losing out on Najee Harris. Once I do mock drafts with trades, I might see the Dolphins trade up. They have a lot of, capital in the future. I could see them being like, hey, I want to make sure I get my guy. So it could be something we add into future mocks. Hope you stick around for that, if you don't mind my rambling. Anyways, Philadelphia Eagles, Arnold Ebiketie. This might be maybe a little rich because I'm not entirely sure. Is Ebiketie, for sure a top 50 guy? He's probably in and around this range, give or take. Some will probably have him a little lower. I could see him being more of an early third guy. But I think this could be a worthy project for Philadelphia, looking to get younger at that position. Don't need Ebiketie to be an impact player right now. So I think that's part of why I like this pick here at 51 is, the timetable. They don't need Arnold Ebiketie to be the guy with 10 sacks this year. Learn, develop behind guys who've had a ton of success. And Philadelphia, give them a lot of crap for, taking Jalen Reagor over Justin Jefferson. Those dudes know how to coach up and develop defensive line talent. We've been talking about them for 8 years or going on that, for that being their identifying factor and their biggest strength. So give Philadelphia credit there. They know how to draft and develop this position. I think Arnold Ebiketie would be a worthy project for him. And then for the Pittsburgh Steelers, I think this makes a ton of sense. And I've been, I think, alluding to it in previous videos, because when I talk about Boye Mafe, I said, he had that one quiet game to start against Nicholas Petit-Frere. I think that's a feather in the cap of Nicholas Petit-Frere. That is awesome. That's a huge statement. And basically, Petit-Frere had a stellar season with Ohio State against dudes not named Aiden Hutchinson, who is in the running for a number 1 overall pick. If not that, I don't think he falls below 3. More than likely, doesn't go past 2. And is also, compared to the guys at the top of that board, him or Kayvon Thibodeau, he is the more pro-ready. So he is the more closely aligned to NFL type of guy of that top-tier group going at the top of this NFL draft. And that's the guy Nicholas Petit-Frere struggled against. I'm sorry. I think he's worthy of going to the second round. He just feels like a solid plug-and-play guy. I imagine Jackson Kirkland would have been available, if you asked me at the beginning of this process, maybe not in the way too early portion because I was thinking first rounder then, but midway through the college season, this is around where I thought Jackson Kirkland might be, and they kind of have that image in mind where this guy can just be a starter day one. Like, I can draft you in the second round, and I can rely on you to play 17 games next year. And that's kind of what I have in mind here. And obviously, offensive line, a huge need for Pittsburgh, especially if they're going to go quarterback in the first round. You got to invest in his ecosystem. So Nicholas Petit-Frere, all that to say, makes a ton of sense there. Then we get to the Las Vegas Raiders, and I think this would be some awesome value here as well. Darian Kinnard feels like a name who, kind of like Kenyon Green, falling just because other people are having their names get hot at the right time, and Kinnard's gone by the wayside. But with Kinnard drafted here, this is potentially, I think what they would do is play Kinnard at left guard. You kick Leatherwood in full-time to right guard, and Denzel Good comes back. If he's healthy, he plays right tackle. That's just one way it could be. It could also be Kinnard at right tackle and Good playing left. Good's got a lot of versatility. Looked, no pun intended, good 2 years ago as well. So I think Kinnard would be that, maybe that missing piece for you to patch up that O-line for the Raiders, which is going to be significant. So in this draft, if you're going to invest in Derek Carr with a $40 million a year extension, I think the proper move for Las Vegas is fix that, finish that offensive line, as well as going wide receiver round 1, getting a big-time playmaker that can stretch the field and force defenses to play over the top. That is how this team could potentially compete in the best division in football, if not the best, maybe the second best. New England Patriots, I talked about it with the Giants. You're going to see a whole lot of Leo Chenal and Christian Harris going there at, it was like 37. I think you'll see a whole lot of the other one going here at 55 or 54 because a similar type of skill set required or asked of by Bill Belichick. Linebackers who can blitz, think Donta Hightower. Christian Harris feels very much like a Donta Hightower type of linebacker, so the fit obviously makes a ton of sense. Back to the Cardinals, I'm not sure if this guy is a second rounder. I'm starting to have some athletic concerns with Martin Emerson. I'm starting to hear that he might run a little bit slower in the 40 than originally anticipated, but he did run a lot of man. He has that big frame at like 6'2", 6'2", 200, comes from a Power 5 conference. I was really liking this pick when I was, kind of thinking about it a couple weeks ago, but as I've started to hear some worries that, he's probably not going to test that well, expect to see him fall down and off of boards entirely potentially, that kind of led me to worry about this pick. But I'm going to stick with it for here. Let me know if you're a Cardinals fan. Is Martin Emerson someone you've watched tape on, or do you like him? I'd love to have your thoughts and feedback on what he could look like in your defense. Dallas Cowboys next pick. I'm going to actually stay in this position, going to safety. I was thinking he might be under the corner group, but Jalen Petrie, this nickel strong safety mix, Elijah Molden, like him and Daxton Hill both play that type of spot. And if Jaron Kearse is gone in free agency for Dallas, that's the type of role I would anticipate Jalen Petrie steps into. You could also move on from Anthony Brown, someone who I played in the slot for the Cowboys, so Petrie could also just be that replacement for Dallas as well. Next up, the Bills, Jameer Saller, I think it's Saller, but nonetheless, interior offensive lineman from Georgia. This is more so just trying to get ahead of the curve and just adding some depth. The Bills have been really good at finding a position of need a year in advance, so Saller, I just think, kind of fits into that type of category. Potential John Feliciano replacement, maybe Cody Ford. It does look like Ford's gonna be the backup on the right side to Darrell Williams kicking inside. So we'll see. You might only be looking for a potential left guard of the future. Maybe they think if this is him. Sneaky wide receiver spot though in my eyes. I could see them wanting to add another guy into that room. They've relied on 4. Sanders more than likely not going to come back unless he's coming back for cheap. So I could see wide receiver here at 57. Next up, Atlanta Falcons. I'm looking for their pick. I'm actually going to stay interior offensive line. I'm going to go Sean Ryan here. Tyler Smith, Dylan Parham, all could be in play as well. This is basically the Jalen Mayfield, fire under his ass type of spark or potential replacement. So that's why I'm moving this route. Obviously a ton of needs, but the second rounder is kind of a stump for me with Atlanta unless there's quarterback. Like if Carson Strong's here, maybe you pull the trigger there. But we went edge and corner with the first 2 picks, and it's like, okay, what's that third need for Atlanta, or what's the best value? And I think Sean Ryan, fringes on that line between the two. Green Bay Packers at pick number 59. I know he got hurt, but he got hurt prior to Jameson Williams. So if we're not worried about Jameson Williams, why are we worried about John Mechie III? Imagine this field stretcher for so long. People have been saying, imagine Will Fuller in that Green Bay offense. Well, imagine John Mechie III in that type of offense. Same role, or at least same principle, and why it's awesome to think of off top is because this is his electric deep threat with uber amounts of speed, and then Devontae Adams on the other side. And like I said at the beginning of the video, I think Aaron Rodgers stays. And maybe, Rodgers requests, I want a wide receiver in the first round, so instead of Travon Walker, it's wide receiver like Jahan Dotson there. I could totally see that, and then you're going edge here, so you could flip those picks around. But I think if you got Travon Walker, the Packers got their type of guy, and they stuck, and Rodgers was just like, hey, whatever your draft strategy is. Green Bay showing a lot of tendency to go wide receiver in the second round. I think John Mechie III could be a really nice add to that wide receiver room. Back to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and speaking of wide receivers I like, Jalen Tolbert, I think, would be a super awesome fit. You could say Mike Evans is a contested catch guy, wins at the catch point at 6'5". I think Tolbert, you probably would say, wins the same way, just at a smaller frame. But there's something about this fit in this marriage I'm really intrigued by. Maybe you're thinking, hey, let's go full upside with George Pickens. Or maybe you're going full, I want a Khalil Shakir or Calvin Austin III, these smaller but electric with the ball in their hands types. I think Tolbert can kind of bridge a little bit of that gap and fill that role you're going to lose with Chris Godwin more than likely not sticking around. Because Godwin got a lot of those screenplays and a lot of the underneath stuff, and they used him as an extension of the run game. I'm not entirely convinced Tolbert can do that. And that's where my concern comes from. But otherwise, I think this would be a really fun add to this offense that, Bruce Arians, now I think he'll get to fully implement what he wants to do with this team, push the ball down the field, vertical. Tolbert would be a lot of fun to see in this type of an offense. For the San Francisco 49ers, I'll give an honorable mention to Derion Kendrick here. My concern with Kendrick is he won't run that well. But in this spot, with that type of pass rush in front of him, it feels like a similar situation to what Kendrick had at Georgia, where they got to the quarterback so fast that his speed concerns never showed up on tape. So Kendrick is really intriguing there, but for a team that is running primarily cover 3, but DeMeco Ryans, give him credit, got head coaching interviews for good reason. More cover 4. Tariq Woolen would be an interesting fit for this team that primarily, and coming from that zone heavy background, that type of defense favors these long type of corners with these pterodactyl arms, 6'4". I mean, that is unbelievable, especially for the cornerback position. So these big, lengthy guys who play on the perimeter and especially in zone. Imagine this guy playing in the flat. You're trying to dump it off your running back and he just sticks out his wing and pokes the ball away and it's an incompletion. It's 2nd and 10. I mean, that's got to be frustrating to play against too. So Woolen would be a project here, and I'm not saying he's guaranteed to be good or perfect in this type of a defense, and it's match made in heaven, not by any stretch, but this is the type of system that I think could get the most out of Woolen and put him in a position to where you get the best version of himself. So this would be an interesting spot for him to go, and plus position of need, so all that comes into effect as well. Next up, Kansas City Chiefs, upside play, inbound, George Pickens. This would be, I feel like I've said it's fun to watch, and that's not a real scout term, but this would be fun to watch if it worked out. The reason I'm going this route, bigger body, feels like that's always nice to add. Travis Kelce serves as that possession type, but what's one more guy in the mix? That would be nice. Great speed. And you talk about adding this type of over-the-top threat, given his frame, but also Tyreek Hill's on the field at the same time. And I can already see the headaches this type of wide receiver room, including Kelce, could cause. Imagine seeing a play, Tyreek Hill goes in motion behind the running back. They're just putting him in, and it looks like he might get a handoff or a jet sweep or something like that. You start to cheat up towards the line. But George Pickens might run a 4.3 or would run a 4.3 if he was competing at the combine. You have to respect that over the top speed, and I could just see that type of setup, those players and those skill types on the field at the same time, just forces defenses to be stuck between a rock and a hard place. Sorry, that was kind of a long anecdote. But Pickens, I think, because of that, he has the speed, he has the size. There's obviously injury concerns, and this could go wrong. But if it goes right, on top of you got a safe, solid value with Jermaine Johnson at 30, go take a shot. And if you added him to this offense and he hits his peak, not even peak, if he becomes 80% of what we thought he could be 2 years ago, this offense has its third pass catcher. That's all I'll say. Next up, Cincinnati Bengals. I'm going to go Dylan Parham here on the interior offensive line. This is kind of a letdown after I got so hyped up about George Pickens. Now we're going interior offensive line for the Bengals. But this, I'll say caveat, this could be corner as well. Maybe this is Derion Kendrick. Maybe this is Tariq Woolen. If this team does sign Ryan Jensen, at that point you've signed a big money center, you drafted a tackle in the first round, maybe you're looking corner, and presumably pretty obvious cut candidate is Trey Waynes. I think that makes an absolute ton of sense, and it's one that you've heard just about everybody talk about. So cut Waynes, draft another potential corner in the room in the second round. Totally like that in mind, but I'm filming this and didn't know if I wanted to react too much to the Ryan Jensen rumors. They are just rumors for that matter. So if Jensen doesn't go to Cincinnati, I really like Dylan Parham here at 63. And to round out this video, let's go Daxton Hill, safety / nickel corner from Michigan. And before I click on it, it shows you my recap. I'll explain this. This team not going to have Kareem Jackson back, who was pretty much the strong safety, box safety after converting from playing corner. Well, why not get a guy who is a corner / safety type? Also, Bryce Callahan this upcoming season, if my memory serves, his last year under contract. So Daxton Hill could also just be your future Bryce Callahan replacement in a slot. So it works one of two ways. He could be your box safety, nickel type, Tyrann Mathieu breed, or he could just be your Bryce Callahan replacement in a couple years' time. So I think it makes a lot of sense, and also awesome value. Like Draft Network had 34 on their board. I might not have him that high, maybe mid 40s, but getting him at 64, that's a slam dunk. But that's going to do it for my 2-round updated NFL mock draft pre-combine testing. Hopefully you all enjoyed today's video. If you did, hit that like button. It would help me and my channel out a ton. If you're new around here, want to see more draft coverage, be sure to hit that big red subscribe button. And of course, this is just a catalyst for a conversation. Give me your thoughts on this draft. Who do I have going too high? Who do I have falling too low? Who's your favorite team? What are some fits you like? What picks do you absolutely hate of mine? I'm here for any sort of conversation you want to have down in the comment section. But that is going to do it for me. Hope you all have a fantastic rest of your day. And until next time, my name is Teach, and I'm signing off.